Incredible moment. Shelter German Shepherd gives birth to a hidden surprise, not puppies. A loud gasp rippled through the small shelter as Dr. Sarah Mitchell knelt beside Bella, the German Shepherd with weary eyes and a tired heart. In this dimly lit room, the townsfolk had gathered, expectant and hopeful, believing they were about to witness the birth of adorable puppies. Instead, as the first cries echoed, it became clear that this delivery would rewrite the narrative they had crafted around Bella, a frail, sickly kitten nestled in her protective grip. Sarah felt her heart race, a mixture of hope and dread flooding her veins. Was this really happening? The shelter had seen its fair share of heartwarming stories, but this was precarious, an anomaly that contradicted every notion of motherhood she had ever known. The kitten was vulnerable, needing care and warmth, but here was a devoted dog willing to provide just that. But would the townsfolk understand? Could Sarah defend this unusual mother-child bond against their preconceived notions? She inhaled deeply, fingers trembling as she brushed the kitten's tiny head. This moment should have felt magical, but the pressure weighed heavy on her shoulders. Scenarios played out in her mind, each more alarming than the last. What if they deemed Bella unworthy? What if the kitten's welfare came under question? Each thought was an avalanche, burying her under layers of doubt. After years of fighting for her voice in the veterinary world and juggling her responsibilities as a single mother to Megan and Dylan, she was left yearning for validation. But she had faced prejudice before, both professionally and personally. Why was this different? As the nursery whispers grew louder, the excitement tinged with skepticism, Sarah's internal battle intensified. She questioned whether she was overstepping. Did she have the right to facilitate this unconventional pairing? The very definition of family was being tested before her eyes. If she couldn't persuade herself that love was enough, how could she convince the townsfolk? Her thoughts raced like a runaway train, drowning out the sounds of the shelter coming to life around her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every instinct screamed for her to protect this small family from judgment, yet all she felt was an urge to showcase their majestic bond to the world. As Bella lapped at her kitten, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Yet, how could she court the local news reporters who were eager to spin headlines? What if the negative response fueled the very prejudices they sought to dismantle? Her mind buzzed with worry over the implications. Caught in this conflicting whirlwind of emotion, Sarah felt an aching helplessness. Should she fight for Bella's right to love? A love that defied the ordinary? Would standing against the tide lead to the acceptance they all craved, or to further alienation? As she battled the discomfort gnawing at her heart, Sarah leaned closer, hope mingled with dread, an uncharted territory unfolding before her. The answer loomed, tantalizingly out of reach, leaving her hovering on a precipice where everything she believed about love and family was about to be challenged. As the room buzzed with a mix of admiration and discomfort, Sarah's thoughts sharpened. Clarity emerged in the chaos, whispering urgency. She couldn't allow Bella and her unexpected kitten to become mere spectacle fodder. This bond represented something profound, challenging the boundaries of love and acceptance. If she could just find the right way to frame it, perhaps she would not only champion Bella, but also shine a light on her own struggles, her ongoing battle against the skepticism that had shadowed her professional life and personal decisions for years. In the thrumming heart of the shelter, Sarah took a deep breath and steadied herself. Instead of succumbing to the anxieties swirling around the onlookers, she mentally outlined her plan. It wasn't enough to simply accept the situation. She needed to embrace it. A small voice within her urged that the world needed to see the truth of Bella's maternal instinct. This love transcended biology and tradition. Could she tell this story, this narrative of untraditional motherhood, in a way that would resonate? Fame was fickle, but with the right spotlight, truth could flourish. Nothing could undermine the beauty of what Bella was doing. All she needed was the courage to push against the confines of public perception. Sarah stilled her racing heart, deciding she would speak, not just as a veterinarian, but as a witness to a miracle of love. "Excuse me, everyone," she called out, raising her voice just enough to command attention. The chatter quieted, eyes slowly turning toward her. What you see before you isn't just a moment to be viewed. This is an unprecedented bond that asks us to reconsider our definitions of family. Bella has welcomed this kitten into her life, and their relationship is a testament to what love can be, pure and unrefined. The murmurs began again, yet this time Sarah welcomed them, allowing the tension to swirl as she pressed on. What do we really know about motherhood? It isn't always neatly packaged, is it? Sometimes it defies what we think is right or expected. Bella is giving her all to nurture this fragile life in a way that defies conventions, and that is beautiful. A braver part of Sarah rose within her, fueled by years of judgment regarding her own choices. She thought of her children, Megan and Dylan, and how resilient they had learned to be amidst others' skepticism. If we start to allow ourselves to challenge these biases, perhaps we can foster understanding instead of denial. This kitten needs Bella, and they need us to support their connection. Together, we can challenge the way we view love and family. She recognized sparks of doubt lingering in the eyes around her, but there were also embers of acceptance flaring. Encouraged, Sarah pressed further, outlining her vision for the shelter, an outreach program that would teach about unconventional families, both human and animal. She envisioned events that would foster understanding and encourage compassion, workshops that could stem from this very moment. As her ideas flowed, Sarah realized they weren't just plans for the shelter, but also a reclamation of her own voice. She was re-engineering her identity in this moment, as a mother and as a vet, taking charge of her narrative rather than letting it happen to her. Yet even as she felt empowered, a creeping doubt remained. Was this enough to shift public perception, or would she soon find herself unraveling in the heat of scrutiny? This new chapter of her life, a balancing act on the tightrope between trepidation and hope, was just beginning. In the distance, she could hear footsteps approaching. The local news team had arrived, eager to catch the unfolding drama. The time had come to face not just the townsfolk but also the world at large, armed with the resolve to protect Bella and her kitten. Would they understand her message, or would fear extinguish it before it could truly begin? Sarah's heart drummed in her chest as the television crew moved closer, their cameras looming like hungry predators. They had arrived in time to capture the unfolding narrative, a moment she had carefully crafted from instinct and vulnerability. The pressure intensified with each breath. She had a fleeting moment to solidify her message. The spotlight was on Bella and her kitten, yet she felt it gravitating towards her as well. "Stay focused," she whispered to herself. She knew the world would cling to sensational angles, but she had to reclaim the story from the jaws of sensationalism. This was her opportunity to express the essence of family, love, and acceptance, not as abstract concepts but as lived realities. She braced herself, knowing that every word would carry weight. "Let me introduce you to Bella," she said, inviting the camera's gaze towards the German shepherd cradling the small kitten protectively. Witnessing this bond is beyond ordinary, like a page torn from a book where love defies explanation. Sarah glanced around and saw several faces twist into expressions of skepticism. Their curiosity interlaced with prejudice needed to be redirected. She took a deep breath, grasping Bella's calmness and maternal presence as a personal anchor. As we observe animals, mothers like Bella, we begin to understand that love isn't confined by bloodlines or societal expectations. This connection challenges our instinct to judge. The words spilled from her, each infused with the passion that had been stifled for too long in the face of criticism. In a moment of reflection, a wave of crystallized understanding struck her. She recognized that she bore the weight of every mother who had been misunderstood. Every parent judged not for their choices, but for the unrelenting norms imposed upon them. Her own choices were stitched into her tone, a mix of vulnerability and defiance against the judgment of others, and so was Bella's. The crew's cameras recorded as she continued, weaving in anecdotal threads from her life as a veterinarian and mother. When my daughter was born, I often faced questions about my decision-making, parenting techniques, how I chose to love and support her. A subtle shift in the crowd suggested they were beginning to engage with her narrative, the skepticism giving way to curiosity. But shadows crept in too. The lingering doubt. Would this story resonate? Would this vulnerability offer what the world so desperately needed? The tendency of society to cling to traditional definitions nagged at her. Would people truly find compassion? Or would they scoff at the unfurling potential for a new narrative? Well, what happens when we encounter differences? She could feel the certainty tightening around her words. When we embrace love that defies convention, we challenge our perceptions of what family is. Pressure mounted as she confronted a lingering specter. The local veterinary board had been watching her closely for months. They were known for their adherence to normativity, and she sensed their disapproval in the back of her mind. How long before the judgmental whispers cast their shadows over this moment of light? Together, we have the power to support unconventional families, animal and human alike, she proclaimed, feeling an electric energy shift among the crowd. The murmurs intensified. Acceptance was on the horizon, but she feared the looming specter of opposition could easily drown out hope. Before she could prepare for the next stage, a figure emerged from the crowd, and her heart skipped. A familiar face she recognized all too well. Dr. Stevens, the veterinary board's head, though not here officially, had the power to disrupt her burgeoning momentum. "Sarah," he called out, his expression unreadable against the backdrop of compassion she had fought ardently to build. "May I have a word?" Her gaze locked with his, an abrupt jolt in her confidence. The growing acceptance swirled around her, yet doubts wove through her mind like a sinister undertow. Would this be the confrontation that could unravel everything she had just begun to construct? Or was it merely a chance to defend her new narrative? In this moment, the battle within her intensified. What would she say? How would she confront doubts while trying to advocate for Bella? A decision loomed before her, and time seemed to suspend, her resolve balancing on a precipice of transformation. The microphone felt heavy in Sarah's hand as she stood before Dr. Stevens, uncomfortably aware of the crew's cameras capturing every flicker of uncertainty in her expression. It was as if the air had thickened, weighing her down with every pulse of her heart. The vibrant energy of the crowd faded into an echo, and she focused on the man standing before her, cutting a stark figure against the backdrop of what had been a moment of liberation. "Sarah," he repeated, his voice low but authoritative. "I need to speak with you about your approach today." As she studied his face, hardened and scrutinizing, she felt her mind racing. Was he there to quell her message? His position at the board gave her chills, and the thought of his disapproval twisted in her gut. Breaching the threshold of the narrative she was crafting required not just courage, but also an understanding of the potential consequences. "I'm here for Bella and that little kitten," she pressed, injecting urgency into her voice. "This is about family. It's about redefining love." The heat of her fervor ignited a spark. If she was going to confront him, she would do it armed with her truth. He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if he wished to guard their exchange from the prying eyes of the crowd. "And what you're advocating could get you into serious trouble," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Unconventional families? It's not a trend we support, Sarah." The sharpness of his words stung, and a fire ignited within her. For too long she had stifled her conviction in fear of judgment, but not today. "This isn't a trend, it's reality. Bella's story is proof of that." She felt the rightness of her words wrap around her like a shield. "Reality is dictated by our understanding of nature, Sarah," he countered, the weight of authority in his stance. "No one wants to see a canine acting against its instincts, let alone your bizarre take on what constitutes a family. You're risking your career, and perhaps the integrity of our practice." His warning flickered through her mind, painting vivid pictures of rejection and disapproval that stifled her when she first entered veterinary medicine. For a fleeting moment, the past crept into the present, rekindling insecurities she had worked so hard to shatter. What if he was right? But then she remembered Bella, and the warmth of the kitten's frail body nestled against the German shepherd's protective form. This was not merely a story, It was a beacon of hope that ignited the passion within her. I refuse to let outdated conventions dictate what love looks like, whether between animals or humans. The truth I've found in my work shows me the beauty of breaking the mold. She saw his expression flicker with uncertainty, and for the first time, the confident poise he wielded wavered. Doubt seeped into his eyes like an unnoticed crack in a sturdy wall. The possibility that her words could penetrate his defenses seized her moment. Think about it, Dr. Stevens. By embracing what doesn't conform, we could inspire a whole new perspective on compassion and acceptance, she urged, feeling every syllable resonate deeply within her. This isn't just about Bella. It's about moving beyond the rigidity that stifles us. The tension hung between them, as palpable as the shifting atmosphere of the crowd around them. Sarah seized it. A chance to challenge not just him, but the systemic norms chaining countless lives. Would the backbone of his authority bristle, or could she plant seeds of doubt within him? He let out a heavy breath, uncertainty etched in the lines of his face. You're brave, I'll give you that. But bravery often leads to conflict, and I recommend you tread carefully. As he stepped back, Sarah steadied herself, the fabric of her resolve woven tighter by her own definition of bravery. The decisions she made now could unleash both opportunity and backlash, yet the exhilaration of her conviction surged within her. Yet, as he turned away, a deep unease rooted itself in her heart. What would happen next? Would the board take his warning seriously? What consequences awaited her if she continued this journey of reframing family? The weight of those questions settled heavily on her shoulders, but instead of succumbing to despair, she felt a surge of determination. Discarding the fear that threatened to undermine her progress, she knew she had to be ready for whatever came next. With Bella as her anchor, Sarah stepped forward, reinvigorated with purpose. She would not back down. The time had come to face more than just an individual. The stakes were rising, the horizon blurred with uncertainty. But would she stand strong against the impending storm, or would she falter under its pressure? The echo of Dr. Stevens's warning clung to Sarah like a fog, tugging at her resolve as she navigated back through the throng of people. Each step felt monumental, not just in physicality but in the very essence of her growth as a veterinarian. The overwhelming strain of uncertainty wrapped around her, attempting to seep into her thoughts. What if his concerns were valid? But then she caught sight of Bella, the loyal German shepherd, waiting in the corner, her eyes warm and full of love. Sarah felt her heart swell. Bella represented everything she aimed to protect and redefine. She was more than just a dog. She was a symbol of familial love, transcending traditional boundaries. That reminder ignited the same sense of purpose that had propelled her to challenge Dr. Stevens in the first place. As she skimmed through the crowd, Sarah contemplated her plan of action. She needed to cultivate a platform for her message, something that would allow her to speak out without fear of retaliation. What would her first step be? With the cameras still rolling, she contemplated streaming a live Q&A session about her work with unconventional families. It would be bold, perhaps reckless, but it could also lay the groundwork for a much larger conversation. Settling into her office, she powered up her laptop, the screen illuminating her focused face. As she began drafting her announcement, doubt flickered in her mind. What if the backlash was worse than she anticipated? What if she lost everything she had worked for? But these thoughts were the whispers of complacency she refused to entertain. Strategizing, she focused on how to frame the narrative around Bella's bond with the kitten. The footage she had recorded earlier could serve as a powerful visual testament to love transcending instinctual boundaries. This story could resonate with others, pet owners, those longing for acceptance, parents struggling with societal expectations. "Okay, Bella," she murmured, glancing towards her companion who had sprawled lazily on the office rug. "Let's make this count." She felt an unexpected surge of clarity, fueled not by the need for external validation, but by a commitment to her truth. Her voice could awaken compassion in others. As she typed, the emotions spilled onto the page, crafting a narrative that weaved Bella's journey with what she felt deep down. The notion that family doesn't necessarily conform to societal expectations. They could be a motley crew, sharing love in their own unique ways. That resonated with her experience and reflected the diverse realities she had witnessed in her practice. At that moment, her phone buzzed. It was a message from one of her closest colleagues, an ally who understood the pressures of the board. "I heard about your talk with Dr. Stevens. Be cautious. We don't want to rock the boat too much. Let us discuss this together." Her chest tightened. Caution had never been a trait she admired. She could feel the tension pulling at the fabric of her decision-making, loyalties to her fellow veterinarians, clashing with her need to speak up for the voiceless. Striking a balance would require not just bravery, but also strategic engagement. What if she approached her colleagues for support prior to the live announcement, gaining their input first? With a rapid email drafted, Sarah found herself in a conflict between loyalty and authenticity. Her gut told her that this was a threshold moment, not just for herself, but for the profession she loved. It was a precarious balance, and as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, she felt the weight of her journey ahead crystallizing with each word she typed. What awaited her beyond this risky endeavor? Would she find allies in her pursuit, or would the tide turn against her? The clock ticked ominously as she took a deep breath, wondering if she was truly ready to stand her ground. The time was drawing near for her to make a choice that could alter her course. Was she willing to risk it all for the truth she believed in? Each moment felt like a countdown to a revelation, and she couldn't help but wonder, how far was she truly willing to go? Fueled by an urgent determination, Sarah hit send on her email to her colleagues and leaned back in her chair. She felt the pulse of her decision vibrating through her. It was an act of vulnerability to invite them into her vision, but she realized it was a necessary step in breaking through the chains of her hesitation. If she allowed her voice to mingle with theirs, could they forge an alliance that would uphold her dedication to redefining family? The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the window, casting a golden hue over her office. As she prepared for the day, her mind remained a whirlwind of thoughts. Her phone buzzed again. It was a reply from one of her colleagues, Dr. Patel, expressing cautious interest in her live Q&A idea and offering support. A flicker of hope ignited in Sarah's chest. Could this be the beginning of a supportive network willing to challenge old paradigms alongside her? As she finished her morning routine, she avoided looking in the mirror for too long. Instead of validating her choices, it had become a sour reminder of her insecurities. Sarah grabbed Bella's leash and took her for a brisk walk outside. With each step, the lingering doubt from Dr. Stevens's warning settled in the corners of her mind, but the promise of her own resolve kept it at bay. The vibrant world unfolded around her, an array of sights and sounds that made her feel alive. Children played, and couples strolled hand in hand. Their shared moments of joy collided with Sarah's internal battle. Was it too naive to believe love existed in various forms, or was she simply hoping for acceptance that had eluded her thus far? Later that day, as she logged onto her social media accounts, Sarah felt an unexpected rush of adrenaline. The thought of the live session made her pulse race. This was no longer just about proving her capabilities. It was her moment to shape the narrative around unconventional families. With every keystroke, she realized this was a chance to explore her own professional identity. She wasn't just following a path already laid out. She was forging her own way, and that felt liberating. Bella trotted over to her, nudging her with a wet nose. "You're right, girl. Let's show them." In a burst of inspiration, Sarah gathered her courage and composed a bold announcement. "Join me for a live Q&A where we'll discuss the evolving nature of companionship and family in our lives." As she posted, doubts began to creep back in. What if the response was derisive? What if her peers looked down on her for not adhering to the established norms? Before the anxiety could spiral, she remembered Dr. Patel's encouragement and Bella's unwavering loyalty. Perhaps it was time to confront these fears directly, to acknowledge them rather than let them simmer. Each question that surfaced in her mind became not an insurmountable obstacle, but an opportunity for growth. The next few days passed in a haze until the day of the live session arrived. She sat in front of her laptop, a heady mix of excitement and fear coursing through her. Bella lay peacefully at her feet, a grounding presence in the chaotic anticipation. The clock steadily ticked down, and she could feel the weight of her unacknowledged fears demanding attention. Just as she was about to press start, Another message dinged through, this time from an unknown number. It read, "People are talking about your announcement. Some don't agree." Each word was a reminder of the stakes involved. She felt the tension inside her. This was it. This session could either signal a breakthrough or a hard fall. Would she have the courage to address the backlash and turn it into a conversation that might, just might, change something fundamental? Steeling herself, she realized something crucial. This was not just about the response of others. It was also a defining moment for her as a faithful advocate for those seen as different, for family concepts beyond convention. Taking a deep breath, she was ready. The moment of truth had arrived. How would she navigate the waves of uncertainty that lay ahead? As she pressed the start button, she could only wonder, would her voice echo compassion or create chaos? As the virtual countdown reached 0, Sarah felt her heart race, every beat echoing in her ears like a drum roll before a long-expected performance. She couldn't capture the moment to imagine what they would think. The blend of anticipation and dread churned in her stomach, a physical manifestation of her internal conflict. "Hello, everyone," she began, her pulse steadying beneath the surface. She was surprised to find her voice clear despite the tremor of uncertainty hovering just below. "Thank you for joining me today." The familiar faces flickered on her screen, each expression a mix of curiosity and skepticism that mirrored her own fears. As she welcomed the viewers, she sensed a palpable energy, a tension that hinted at the potential for either connection or confrontation. Silence wrapped around her like a shield. Sarah took stock of the mixed responses. Some intrigued, others' eyes narrowed in doubt. Ignoring the growing pang of anxiety, she launched into her introduction, focusing on her vision of family as an evolving concept, a tapestry woven from diverse threads of love and commitment. Questions flooded in almost immediately. How do you justify these new family structures? What about the traditional family model? Each question was steeped in challenge, each word sharpening her resolve. For every piece of skepticism hurled at her, there was Dr. Patel's steady encouragement flashing in her mind. She was not alone in this. Every family is built on love, care, and mutual support. It's not about fitting a mold, but creating connections that thrive on authenticity, she asserted, gaining confidence. The silence that followed felt heavy, but also enlightening. She understood they were processing her words, confronting their own assumptions. A particularly sharp voice cut through the digital space. But doesn't this undermine the stability that traditional families provide? Sarah took a breath, feeling the daunting weight of the question. This right here was the crux of her battle, the heart of her advocacy. "I believe," she replied slowly, "that stability does not come from structure alone, but from the acceptance and love within members, no matter how they are related." For every moment she felt uncertain, the words she had practiced were breaking the barriers of her doubts. In addressing resistance, she was not just defending her vision, but also showcasing her growth, demonstrating the strength forged through vulnerability. As the session continued, she wove in personal anecdotes. Her reflections on her own upbringing, her experiences with familial love. These underwent transformation in the narrative she shared. Each story became not merely an argument, but a testament to her conviction that family could be redefined without losing its essence. Yet the underlying tension grew sharp. She could sense the traditionalists bristling as she spoke. Sarah felt the gravity of her mission deepen with every question. It wasn't about winning hearts, but nurturing a discussion that could birth understanding. In that moment, she felt an awakening within herself. An identity as not just an advocate, but a pioneer in exploring emotional truths, often left in the shadows. The session's climax arrived as someone brought up her earlier email, citing unfiltered opinion. Isn't this an excuse to disregard the traditional values that define family? This moment shattered her steady facade. She could retreat into her fears or escalate the discussion, facing the very judgment she sought to dismantle. As the voices buzzed, diverging into chaos, Sarah's resolve firmed. She could not succumb. She could redefine these values through her lens. Would they accept that love encompasses many forms? Plan crystallized in her mind, a strategy forged through the necessity of confrontation and clarity. She would challenge the concept, not just engage. Let's reflect on our motivations and the foundational aspects of family. Isn't the point to expand rather than restrict love? Instinctively, her fearless curiosity emerged, ready to confront not only the external critiques, but internally questioned beliefs as well. It was now or never, the time to uplift not just herself, but her vision. As the session drew near its conclusion, she sensed her words floating toward the viewers, leaving a trace of contemplation. A tightening moment lingered before she quickly closed with a powerful question of her own. What type of family do you envision sustaining loving communities? Can it stretch beyond the confines we've accepted? As the silence fell, her heart raced. This was the moment to uproot and replant the conversation. Would they yield to growth? Or would it reveal their unaddressed fears? Uncertainty hung in the air as the screen glimmered luminescent with love and doubt intermingled. The next step in her journey lay obscured before her. Every choice now could either illuminate the path to acceptance or shadow her advance in turbulence. What lay in the balance, both for her and those willing to join her in this exploration? The virtual silence hung like a dense fog, thickening the air where Sarah had poured her heart out just moments before. The anticipation of her closing question lingered, vibrating between what was said and what remained unspoken. As the viewers mulled over her words, Sarah's mind spun, a storm cloud of doubt emerging among the glimmers of self-assuredness she had felt. Did they truly hear her? The session ended, but its echoes replayed in her head. Each moment fell away, leaving her alone with a cacophony of competing thoughts. Disconnection settled in her chest as she logged off. She had anticipated a mixed bag of reactions, but the weight of skepticism had landed heavier than she expected. In the ensuing days, her thoughts unraveled. Each reflection unveiled new insecurities, old doubts that crept back silently like shadows. Did she sway anyone? Or was her passion merely a flame extinguished too soon among steadfast beliefs? In search of clarity, she revisited Dr. Patel's sessions, engrossed in their discussions on emotional resilience. He had once said, "Growth often lies in discomfort." Now, faced with her own, she pondered the phrase, trying to distill what it meant for her. Was this discomfort a diagnosis of her failure, or a signal illuminating the path to growth? One evening, the sharp sound of a notification sliced through her haze. An email popped up. It was from one of her viewers, a man named Thomas, who had questioned her advocacy vehemently during the session. Why was he writing now? With a mix of apprehension and curiosity, she opened the message. Sarah read Thomas's words with mounting intrigue. He had reflected on his own upbringing, acknowledging a profound admiration for his family, but expressing a growing conflict with rigidity. Your words force me to confront my own beliefs, and I realize I have considered this debate through too narrow a lens, he admitted. He ended his email with a request for a conversation. A strange thrill ignited within her. This was the very essence of what she had hoped to achieve. A genuine, open discussion. Yet still, the apprehension lingered. Could this dialogue feel organic? Or would it devolve into another clash of ideals? Against her better judgment, her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she drafted a response. She expressed her gratitude for his honesty, highlighting how vital these kinds of conversations were for mutual understanding. Instead of falling into the same patterns of defense or offense, could they design a space where both of their beliefs could coexist long enough to challenge preconceived notions? As Sarah hit send, she felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. She was not just willing to challenge traditional views, but to also confront her own. This commitment marked a shift. Her professional development was now intertwined directly with her personal evolution. Days passed, and the anticipation grew as she awaited Thomas's reply. In this stretch of waiting, where the potential for confrontation met the promise of a new understanding, Sarah found herself reflecting. The power of vulnerability emerged again, deepening her connection to her own foundation of beliefs. If she could navigate the discomfort, if she could withstand the push and pull of opposing views while remaining anchored to her vision, perhaps she could become a bridge, rather than a wall. Then came the notification she had long awaited. Thomas had finally replied, suggesting they meet over coffee the following week, an informal setting, a refreshing break from their digitally mediated confrontation. She felt a giddiness spark through her, nervously refamiliarizing herself with the emotions of hope and uncertainty. As she began to prepare for that meeting, her mind buzzed with anticipation about what they might uncover together. Here rested the potential for a pivotal shift. What if this encounter led to a deeper understanding, one that would empower both of them, transcending traditional boundaries of ideology? Just before she drifted off to sleep that night, a thought struck her. Perhaps this was all part of a greater unveiling, an unexpected phase of her journey that would challenge her already evolving identity. How much further could she stretch her understanding, and what other hidden truths awaited her? Unbeknownst to her, this would be more than a discussion with one individual. It held the seed of transformation that could ripple outward, compelling her to confront more than just opposing views. Could this become the moment that ignited a deeper exploration of her own beliefs? With excitement and anxiety intertwined, Sarah felt the weight of what was to come settle over her. A confrontation not simply with traditions, but with her own evolving ideals. Her journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would force her to face deeper truths and confront the very essence of her beliefs. What awaited them over coffee would chart new territory. Where would it lead? As the appointed day approached, Sarah's pulse quickened with every thought of meeting Thomas. Her usual repertoire of strategies and arguments filled her mind, but quickly faded away, replaced by an eagerness to listen, to genuinely understand what lay beneath his prior skepticism. The coffee shop they had selected buzzed with life. The sounds of steaming milk and distant chatter faded into a calming background hum as Sarah took her seat, her heart hammering with anticipation. She arrived early, attempting to quell her rising nerves. Her fingers fidgeted over the chipped ceramic mug, tracing its outline while she reminded herself of Dr. Patel's teachings. Connection begins with vulnerability. Would she be able to harness that principle, to reveal her own uncertainties while extending an invitation to Thomas to do the same? As the door swung open, Sarah's heart stalled. It was Thomas, a bit disheveled but smiling, bearing an unassuming confidence that belied their earlier tense exchanges. They exchanged greetings, and she gestured toward an empty table tucked away from the bustle, seeking a space that fostered openness. After ordering their drinks, the air grew heavy with exploration. Sarah started cautiously, recounting her experience from the session and the doubts that had sprung forth since then. "I want to be clear," she said, locking her gaze with his. "I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm still processing everything too." Thomas nodded, leaning forward. "I appreciate that. I guess I came at your argument from a place of defensiveness. Traditions shape our identities, and I felt you were challenging that whole foundation I relied on." His confession hung in the air, heavy with resonance. Her throat tightened. The weight of his words mirrored the turmoil inside her. "So, what changed for you?" she asked. "What made you reach out?" "I started questioning why I view things the way I do," he admitted. "It began with your words, but it's tied to the experiences I've had growing up. I cherish my family and their values, but I also see how they've limited my perspective. It's daunting to think I may have been unwittingly promoting division with ideas I never fully challenged." His candor was disarming, an opening that echoed her own search for clarity. As they delved deeper into their respective experiences, an unexpected synergy developed, one that transcended their earlier confrontation. They exchanged stories, weaving a tapestry of ideals and experiences that illuminated both commonalities and divergences. Sarah found herself more engaged than she had anticipated, listening intently as Thomas articulated his evolving thoughts. It was stirring to witness his internal journey. It mirrored and validated the shifts she had been enduring herself. Yet, there was a subtle discomfort nagging at her, a realization that her exploratory narrative had also become intricately linked to her future self, a blend of hope and anxiety. What if this discovery led to significant change, not just for Thomas but for her as well? As the conversation ebbed and flowed, Sarah mustered the courage to ask a question lingering at the back of her mind. "Do you think we can change the conversations around tradition without undermining the values we hold dear?" Thomas paused, placing his cup down with intent. "That's the crux of it, isn't it? Reconciling past and potential future. But what if the challenge of changing that dialogue becomes our greatest strength?" His answer sparkled with insight, a moment of clarity that brightened the uncertainty hanging above them. Perhaps this meeting was not merely about opposing ideas. It was also about uncovering deeper truths that lay hidden beneath inherited beliefs. The conversation continued to unfold like a map, charting new territories of understanding. And yet with each revelation, the tension of what lay ahead began to creep in. If both of them were to evolve, they would also need to navigate the discomfort of their beliefs changing, core principles that had once felt immovable. As they wrapped up their discussion, Sarah felt a tinge of ambivalence creep in, realizing that this was not merely about Thomas. It was her journey toward self-discovery, challenged at every turn. She had broached a new facet of her identity, one interwoven with the complexities of collaboration and growth. Just as they began to stand, Thomas offered an intriguing thought. Maybe these conversations can spark broader discussions, ones where people might actually be willing to listen. But how do we create that willingness? Sarah pondered the question, a flicker of urgency igniting in her chest. As they parted, her own transformation crystallized. If she wanted to be a bridge between ideologies, could she muster the courage to take these dialogues further and challenge others in her circle? The clarity hit her like a jolt. This was just the beginning of a much larger journey, one where the real challenges of growth awaited. There, in the midst of the bustling cafe, a new path began to outline itself, hidden beneath layers of doubt and revelation. Would she be ready to embrace this chance at a larger scale, to become a catalyst for change? In the weeks following her pivotal conversation with Thomas, Sarah embraced her role as an advocate for diverse concepts of family, shedding the weight of previous insecurities. The live Q&A had revealed a simmering need for honest discussions, and she was ready to catalyze those conversations on a broader scale. With renewed determination, Sarah organized a workshop at the shelter aimed at educating others on unconventional family structures, both human and animal. She brought in guest speakers, including veterinarians and social workers, who could share perspectives on non-traditional familial narratives. As she presented, she felt a palpable shift in her confidence. Each shared story chipped away at the preconceived notions clinging to the audience, opening up dialogues that, up until now, had been stifled by fear of backlash. The support she received from her colleagues, including Dr. Patel, bolstered her ambitions. What had started as a personal mission now surged into a communal endeavor. Sarah began to see the threads connecting her experiences to the larger conversation surrounding acceptance, deepening her understanding of the diverse family landscapes that existed within her community. Through these workshops, attendees voiced their own fears, doubts, and hopes regarding their interpretations of family. By creating space to challenge rigid boundaries, Sarah witnessed transformative moments among the participants, a ripple effect of empathy and understanding, echoing the very values she strived to promote. As summer transitioned into fall, Sarah was approached by the local newspaper. They wanted to feature her efforts in redefining family through the bonds of love, showcasing Bella as a symbol of unexpected connections. Recognizing an opportunity, Sarah agreed, infusing her story with the message of acceptance she had long championed. The article captured her growth and the shelter's outreach programs, shining a spotlight on a narrative previously overshadowed by doubt. Days later, she found herself at the center of a community forum, not just as a veterinarian, but as a voice advocating for love that transcended traditional definitions. She addressed the audience with an authenticity that enveloped her entire being. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Many expressed gratitude for the new perspectives she had ignited, fueling a collective journey toward acceptance. With each interaction, Sarah's impact grew not only in her professional life, but resonated deeply in her personal life. Megan and Dylan became ambassadors of her message, forging their paths with compassion for all forms of love. They embodied the very ideals she advocated, seeking out differences and celebrating them instead of retreating to termed normalcy. The ultimate validation arrived when the veterinary board reached out. Surprisingly, they informed Sarah that her initiatives had reshaped conversations around acceptance within the local veterinary community. They invited her to speak about her experiences at their annual conference. Sarah stood before the audience filled with her peers, delivering a presentation highlighting her journey from uncertainty to empowerment. She had transformed the skepticism of traditionalism into a coalition fostering understanding. Her career blossomed alongside her newfound confidence, She was recognized for her innovative ideas on accommodating various family dynamics in veterinary care. As her position solidified, so did her realization that she had reconstructed her identity. That sturdy foundation anchored her, allowing Sarah to cultivate not just acceptance for unconventional families, but to pave the way toward unapologetic authenticity. She felt vindicated, encouraged by the knowledge that her voice mattered, that questioning norms could initiate meaningful dialogue. On a crisp autumn day, Sarah stood beside Bella in the shelter. The pair had become local icons of non-traditional love, serving as profound reminders of resilience and acceptance. They represented the far-reaching impact of shared journeys grounded in vulnerability and courage. This chapter of her life closed with Sarah not just having achieved recognition, but also embracing herself as an unwavering force of change. She had conquered her self-doubt, replaced it with an understanding of love's complexities, and redefined family on her own terms. Bella's loving bond with her adopted kitten became a narrative of hope and acceptance, intertwining deeply with Sarah's purpose and destiny. Now it was time for others to join her, understand the beauty in diversity, and embrace the unfamiliar as an avenue for growth. The future lay bright, glimmering with potential. Every interaction, every story waiting to be shared, beckoning others to step forward and embrace their own truths. If you found inspiration in Sarah's journey, you need to subscribe now to this channel for more exclusive emotional stories that challenge, inspire, and uplift. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm and get the important conversations out there. Comment your reactions and theories about this story, and share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Join the conversation and be part of a community transforming narratives.